Hi everyone, welcome. What you see here in the fine print on these labels is the description of the inhabitants of these systems. So it says RW red wigglers, ENC, European night crawlers, blue worms, Indian blue worms. That's what I refer to as the mixed red worms. And bin number 1 and bin number 2, these paired up bins have been in service for 50 days now. And it's been 2 weeks since we last checked in on them. Past couple check-ins have been adhering to a new menu plan. It was the idea of one of the viewers, and we decided to adopt the idea, which was to give them only coffee. Coffee was the only food that they're going to get. And you might have noticed there's paper top coverings on these systems, whereas all of the neighboring bins, if you look closely, there's plastic covering everything around here. I think I might upgrade these systems to have some bubble wrapped coverings. We can keep those double layer paper bags there, but I'd also like to add plastic just to make sure we got moisture in there. Coffee being kind of not a juicy food option makes me worry that the system has the potential to dry out, so I want to make sure whatever moisture goes in there remains there. And paper might not be the best thing to ensure that. So I'm going to get these systems up on the bench and we're going to get to giving them their next coffee meal. So I definitely want to give credit where credit is due. This double paper here, it's sugar. Like when you buy sugar or flour or some of these bulky kitchen products, they come in these double bags. And that's what we chose to use as our top coverings here. But you know what's going to happen? As soon as we start covering with plastic and the moisture underneath the plastic begins to recirculate, this paper will get damp and then it'll just become subject to being nibbled on by the worms. And I'm all for that, you know. So otherwise, this is really tough paper that will probably just sit out here and last forever and ever if it didn't get some form of moisture on it. So I think I like the idea. And well, it's not too surprising that we've got coffee filters here as feeding zone indicators, with these being the systems that are being fed only coffee. And, well, 2 more new ones coming in. So this can just become, the old ones I mean, here, can become supplemental bedding to accompany the feeding. It's, I guess it's a little bit difficult to be creative in systems like this where you're limited to only one type of food. And the one place where we did give ourselves a little bit of latitude to be creative and interesting is the bedding itself. And I also gave myself the leeway to include worm chow. Worm chow to accompany the coffee, because that's just one of my little customs. And then even grit, you know, because grit is also almost like a, not even so much a food, but more of a digestion aid or something like that. So here's another old coffee filter. And you know, I almost feel like the most important thing here to help maintain a comfortable, healthy environment for the worms is going to be moisture. Good thing about the plastic covers idea, because this material is starting to feel a little bit dry, even digging down deep. Doesn't feel like it's holding a great deal of moisture, and I'm sure the worms are sensing it and not really enjoying it much. So I just kind of went through the feeding zone. There was some old cardboard placed down in there, an old coffee filter, and some of these old objects that we discovered were the stem of a pumpkin, the husk of a mango seed, a couple old corn cobs. So I guess some of this old stuff goes back to a point in time prior to us instituting the coffee only diet. So if they really feel like they want to indulge in some sort of deviation from their typical menu plan of coffee only, then there's those objects for them to turn to. So I guess we're going to find very similar things over here as we excavate the feeding zone of bin number 1. So there's the coffee filter, here's the cardboard sheet. Here, I guess we've got even a second coffee filter, maybe even more. And corn cob. And pumpkin stem. And another piece of corn cob. We're almost in perfect sync except for no half of a mango seed husk. I would not be too surprised if we were to encounter one. But we're not going to go crazy looking for it here. We're not here to hunt down old food objects. When I do encounter them, I like the idea of kind of rounding them up and keeping them together and sort of including them with the feeding. And I think, like I said earlier, moisture is going to be a key ingredient here. So I'm going to use my already very, very damp prepared bedding today as a foundation, but we're not going to stop there when it comes to moisture. We're going to bring in the spray wand, and we're going to dampen this stuff even more because, well, coffee is not a juicy food, and that's for sure. So I think we're going to benefit a lot from being very generous with moisture in this system. And then once the plastic covers go on, we can be rest assured that whatever moisture is in here is going to remain in here and not evaporate away into the air, and hopefully maintain an environment that the worms are comfortable in. That is, after all, the key here. So I think we've dampened that prepared bedding down there up enough because it already came in here very, very damp. Now these old objects that we're returning can all get dampened nicely, although these are not the sort of things that are going to absorb a lot of moisture into themselves. That pumpkin stem, obviously. And here too, we've been pretty generous with the moisture. Just bring the wand back and forth a little bit more as we start to reintroduce some of these old objects. Definitely like the idea of dampening this large chunk of cardboard, these old coffee filters. All those things are going to hang on to the moisture nicely, I believe. And before we come in with today's food and the new replacement coffee filters that will become our replacement feeding zone indicators, we can upgrade these old feeding zone indicators to now just being supplemental bedding down in the feeding zone, and then in can come the coffee. Yum yum. That's all you get, guys. That's what it is. This stuff just came out of the machine a short while ago, maybe an hour ago. It's pretty warm still. But I didn't want to do it right after pulling it out of the machine, so I let it sit for about an hour before coming down here to give it to the wormies. This is from the day before. So here are our replacement feeding zone indicators. We'll bring them back in once we've leveled off over the feeding zones. But don't forget, I like to, at this point, exercise my little bit of latitude I have on the nature of their feedings and introduce a little bit of extra bonus stuff along with the coffee. Why not, right? Okay. Just got some of this stuck to my hand here. And that's our feeding. Now I guess as long as we're going to do what I usually do, which is just to aerate the outer edges as we bring material in to cover up the feeding zones, let's start incorporating moisture while we're at it. Dampen everything as we go. I definitely feel a good bit of dryness happening here in this stuff. And for that reason, I believe we're going to find very few worms in this stuff. Well, hopefully we're not coming in here too late. I definitely remember seeing a good many worms as we excavated down in the feeding zones. So I think we were at least maintaining a habitable range down in the center of the system. But out here on the edges, it seems like covering with only paper the way we were here was not the best idea. Oh well. At least we recognized the matter, and now we're remedying it by restoring the lost moisture that the system so desperately needs at this point. And then the plastic covers are going to help a lot with letting the system hang on to this moisture as well. Alright. We've dispensed a good bit of moisture, but as we go, the pressure in the canister begins to get less and less, providing less flow. But I think we've dispensed enough to take care of dampening bin number 1 over here quite nicely. Before we run out of pressure, I'll see if I could rinse off my glove here a little bit. Alright, not bad, not bad. So I'm going to take a little break here, give the water canister a few pumps to get the pressure up so we can do the same treatment to bin number 2. So give me 5. Alrighty, I took no more than a minute to do that, so now hopefully we can deliver a far greater amount of moisture in far less time into this fairly dry material. Ay, ay, ay. Gosh, good thing we're catching this now, and it's a good thing that it's not as bad as it could be. Can you imagine if this stuff got any drier? Luckily down in the middle where we had fed most recently, and I guess introduced enough additional moisture at that time to maintain a fairly reasonably dampened space for them to retreat to. The stuff out here on the edges is terribly, terribly dry. Still, it's interesting to, turn the material around and then look at that. Find worms throughout this stuff. Maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe I'm thinking that they need a lot more moisture than they really need. I mean, you know that they really enjoy a high degree of moisture, but perhaps it's not as dire here as I originally thought it was. That's okay. Maybe I'm just a little bit of a overprotective worm daddy over here. Alright, well, that was kind of an intense aeration of the outer edges of the system there, because normally it's not that dry. And perhaps I should have known better, between the system being very new, consisting of mainly bedding, very few castings in the beginning, as well as the very dry diet plan of no juicy fruits, no veggies or fruits or anything with its own moisture content, just coffee. These systems are terribly dependent on us coming in here with generous amounts of moisture and maintaining the environment comfortably for them. So we're going to have to watch it, but I think we're coming in just in the nick of time to give the systems what they need, the attention they deserve. So before we proceed to returning the paper covers and then upgrading to the nice new plastic bubble wrap covers getting added on as well, I figure let's treat them to a little bit of leafy matter out here on the top surface. I did notice when I reviewed the video from our last check-in that they had been given some of this a couple feedings ago. When we came in, it was all resting out there and it got blended in everywhere, but it seemed like they were due for a little bit more of this stuff, because that stuff is so nice when the moisture starts to recirculate onto it. And I guess this is going to be our test, right? If we put the bubble wrap plastic covers on here now and don't see a lot of recirculating moisture soaking these leaves, these top covering papers, then we might be getting a warning sign that there's the need for even more moisture. But my guess is that we're in a good enough situation here that we've caught it in time. These plastic bubble wrap covers will force the moisture to remain in the systems, and everything beneath it will hopefully get damp. Maybe we don't wait 2 weeks between check-ins this time. Maybe we will come back sooner just to make sure things are coming along okay here and give them their next coffee feeding. So happy day 50 here, along with feeding number 5 in the mixed red worm bins. No longer the new kids on the block, with a couple other systems over there on the shelf that are younger now, but still young enough that we should be careful, make sure that they're getting off to a good start. And it does seem like we provide a little bit of a rocky road there in the beginning. Hopefully we can recover from it and become a nice cozy place for the worms to live in. So that's it for the video, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.